Well, I have something that I want to say. I've been reserved, but I feel that it is my civic duty to exercise my right to speak. And I'm going to be speaking concerning the former president, the 46th president of the United States, in the person of Joseph Robinette Biden. It's now coming out that he is dealing with an aggressive cancer of his prostate. And there's reports out suggesting or purporting that he was asymptomatic, meaning that this cancer was dormant, meaning that he didn't know. But my only issue with that is during his presidency, we were told a completely different narrative. And that narrative that we were told was that President Biden at the time had a clean bill of health. That's what we were told. That's what was purported. And so now it's coming out that he has an aggressive, maybe that's why it's aggressive, because they probably knew that he had this, given that it was asymptomatic, given that it was dormant, and so that's probably why it became aggressive, because they knew then and they didn't say anything about it or do anything. So they let it become aggressive to the point where now it has reached stage 4, which is bad. Okay. And so I believe that they were running, his family kept quiet about it, but they were running him for president just so that way they can stay in power. And I think that is totally unfair that they did it at the expense of President Biden's health. And so I say, shame on you, First Lady Jill Biden. You just wanted to remain in power. And here's the thing, Jill, if you want to be president, why don't you just run? You should have just ran for president rather than using a senile old man, knowing that man wasn't in his right mind. I'm not faulting Joe Biden. I'm faulting the people that basically has a monopoly or control that colonized him, namely his wife. Because every time he had a slip up, what was Jill doing? Trying to save the day. That's just like Joe Biden was just on The View. He had a hard time communicating or articulating the things that he was trying to say. And what did Jill do? She jumped in for the rescue. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not surprised that his level of illness has reached the crescendo of stage 4 cancer, because they kept quiet about it and they were using him just so that way they can stay in power. That is sick and it's dirty. You know what? Watch this. This is even reminiscent as far as the story. I don't know if you remember the TV show entitled Different Strokes. All right, you had Gary Coleman, who played Arnold on the show, and you had Willis Todd Bridges, who played Willis as Arnold's brother. Then of course, you had Kimberly, you had Mr. Droman. And so here's the point. There was a recent interview with Todd Bridges, who played Willis, and they were asking him, what was it like working on the set with Gary Coleman, the one that played Arnold? And he revealed how abysmal it was because they said his family was making him work. Watch this, at the expense of his illness. He had an illness with his kidneys. He was on the show and had to do dialysis before working, but his family made him work. You know why? Because his family was his meal ticket, was the family. No, he was their meal ticket. And so it's no different than Jill Biden. She pretended that President Biden was fine when she knew that that was not the case. But she did it at the expense of his health. No different than Gary Coleman's family made money at the expense of his health. Then they turned around and took all his money. Dirty. That's evil. That is evil. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about my theory regarding this tragedy.